C'est les deux côtés. Yep. Bonjour, je m'appelle Peter Julian, je suis l'ancien député de New Westminster à Burnaby. Et j'aimerais reconnaître, juste en partant, qu'on est sur le territoire traditionnel du peuple algonquin Anishinaabe et sur ce terre traditionnel qui y vit depuis des millénaires. On est ici parce que l'MPD est importante. On est ici parce qu'on a vu, après le chèque 28 avril, en faisant le jour suivant, le porte-à-porte, en parlant avec les gens, on se rend compte de plus en plus qu'on a besoin vraiment d'un NPD qui est solide et qui est fort. On voit de plus en plus les gens qui regrettent d'avoir voté pour le gouvernement libéral. On a vu ça avec C2, avec C5. On a vu ça aussi avec l'écrasement des droits syndicaux pendant l'été. On voit avec cette peur appréhendée des coupeurs dans les services dont les Canadiennes et les Canadiens dépendent. Et aussi le refus total de continuer avec le programme et l'entente sur les assurances médicaments. Avec tous ces éléments-là, c'est extrêmement important que l'MPD revienne, renaître et revienne plus fort qu'avant. Et c'est pour cette raison-là qu'aujourd'hui, on annonce et on est en train de lancer l'initiative du renouvellement du MPD. C'est une initiative des bénévoles. On est tous des bénévoles à travers le pays qui y travaillent. C'est une initiative qui est complémentaire aux efforts que l'MPD est déjà en train de mettre. Et c'est un effort aussi, une initiative qui n'est pas liée avec aucun camp du leadership. L'idée, c'est vraiment de mettre dans les mains des militantes et militantes toutes les possibilités de reconstruire cette partie-là, toutes les suggestions de plateforme, toutes les idées de comment on peut changer nos structures et renaître l'MPD à travers le pays. On a déjà fait ça dans le passé. En 1958, la Fédération du Commonwealth coopérative a eu un échec total, a perdu le statut du parti. Et par la suite, on a eu des discussions, des débats pendant quelques années, en faisant appel aussi au mouvement syndical, au club du nouveau parti. Le résultat était la fondation du MPD en 1961. Aussi, en 1993, on a eu un autre échec. Moi, j'étais engagé comme coordinateur des renouvellements. J'ai travaillé avec une équipe, un comité à travers le pays. Et effectivement, on a réussi de mettre en place une plateforme qui était osée, de changer nos structures, de s'entendre sur une déclaration des principes et de faire une déclaration de renouvellement. Et tout ça a été adopté en 1995. Alors, la réalité aujourd'hui, c'est que dans les 6 prochains mois, en venant jusqu'au Congrès en mars prochain, c'est extrêmement important d'impliquer les militantes. C'est extrêmement important d'avoir cette participation des gens à travers le pays. Et on est en train justement d'inviter les membres, aussi les gens qui sont des anciens membres et les Canadiennes et Canadiennes d'y participer, de reconstruire cette partie. Cette conférence de presse fait partie, bien sûr, de l'annonce, mais aussi, il y a quelques minutes, on a envoyé des informations à toutes les associations du comté du MPD à travers le pays. Et ce matin, notre portail du renouvellement a été ouvert au grand public. So we're here because the NDP is needed now more than ever. After the April 28th election, we picked ourselves up in my community and dusted ourselves off, went right back to work. We started knocking on doors. And what we've seen over the summer is more and more voters' remorse about the Carney government. C2 and C5, the pushing aside of labor rights that we saw this summer with flight attendants, the threatened cuts to services, the refusal to move ahead with pharmacare, all of those are elements that mean that the NDP needs to come back stronger than ever. And that's why today we're launching the NDP's renewal initiative, entirely volunteer-based, complementary to the party that is also putting in place work in this regard, and affiliated with no leadership campaign whatsoever. We are agnostic on leadership. What we want to do is give that voice to the grassroots across the country, to members, to former members, and to Canadians, to help work together to rebuild the NDP. And we've done this before, in 1958, with the CCF losing official party status. we embarked on a process that involved new party clubs and Canadians across this country and the labour movement coming together. And that resulted in the foundation of the NDP in 1961. In 1993, we also lost official party status. And we rebuilt with a renewal initiative across the country. I was hired as the renewal coordinator, but we had a renewal committee across the country. We came together to develop bold platform policy, to ensure that we could change and democratize our structure, to agree on a statement of principles and also a renewal declaration. We did all of those things. And coming out of that process in the 1995, we regained party status and moved forward again. So we're making that invitation today to members, to former members, to Canadians across this country to join together and help us shape and create and renew the NDP. I'd now like to turn the microphone over to Ms. Doris Mah, who is an activist from Burnaby, British Columbia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Doris Mah, and I'm a proud resident of Burnaby, British Columbia. I flew just overnight, a red eye, over to Ottawa. I've prepared some notes, but I decided to speak from my heart. I came here because I believe in the NDP. I believe the future of the NDP, and I believe in Canada. On April 28, I was involved in a campaign in Westminster, Burnaby, Mallarfield. We lost one of the most longest-serving NDP MP, Peter Julian, by just 1,900 votes. We had 250 volunteers, canvassers on the ground on election day. Losing the seat was devastating. In the past couple of months, I've been in the community talking to people. I've read over 500 emails from people who are telling us, please do something because we need the NDP back. People are telling us that right now the Carney government is not helping them. They're scared. They're scared of the economy. They're scared of how they're going to pay rent. They're scared of how to put food on the table. And they don't feel that the Carney government is speaking and helping them or addressing their issues. So I talked to a lot of folks and I said, what would you like to do? They said, I don't know. What can we do? And this is when a group of us, we started in BC. Now it has spread over to Toronto and Ottawa. We have a couple of volunteers, and we come together and ask ourselves, what can we do? Because Canada needs the NDP. We need the NDP to speak for regular Canadians, people like me, who needs to raise a family and pay all the expenses. And we don't feel like the government is helping us. And we don't have the certainty that they are helping us. They seem to be just helping the big corporations, spending money that we don't know where they're spending. So we come together and we're hoping this movement, there'll be more people join us. The election result was disheartening, shocking. As a New Democrat, as a long-time New Democrat, it was very sad for us, all of us. But we don't lose hope. We know, as Peter had just said, the party had gone through similar situations. We had collapses before. We bounced back. And as long as we band together, we can bounce back together. And so I'm encouraging all New Democrats, all the EDAs, members, executive members, presidents, all the grassroots, union activists, stakeholders that are aligned with our values, come together. We have lost a lot of members. And it's important that we come together, and I encourage all New Democrats to check out our website as well. Next, I wanted to introduce Matthew Green. He's a former member of Parliament for Hamilton Centre. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doris. Good morning, and thank you very much for being here today. My name is Matthew Green, the very proud former Member of Parliament in Hamilton Centre, as a member of Canada's only Labour Party, the NDP. And you know, there's a saying in Labour, don't get angry, organize. I want to begin by first acknowledging the incredible work that is already happening here in the House of Commons with a small but mighty group of 7 MPs, those that survived the tidal wave of the April 28th election. I want to acknowledge our interim leader, Don Davies, and his work in making sure that Canada's only Labour Party continues to have a working class voice in the House of Commons. We know that they have their work cut out for them in these two right-of-centre parties under the Liberals and the Conservatives. We also recognize the staff within our party, those that remain who are working tirelessly to ensure that we have a vibrant leadership race, a convention, and we know that in 6 months that process is going to happen. But we also know, having experienced 2 minority governments, that it is not good enough to wait 6 months before we begin this very important process of renewal. And we know that there's lots of people out there who would seek to write us off. But as you've heard, we've been here before, and we know the work that it takes in order to get back out there, identify, engage, rank and file New Democrats, those who have supported us in the past, those who perhaps held their nose and voted Liberal because they thought they had to, save the country against Donald Trump. We recognize the uncertainty of that moment, but we are beyond that moment now. And we know that in times of increasing authoritarianism, that we need more democracy in Canada, not less, which is why in our system, as is expressed by both Doris and Peter, the need to have a strong plurality of voices, an opposition that could be propositional and oppositional, and an opposition party that can go out and engage working class Canadians to ensure that they have a voice. So we're here in the spirit of the NDP with both hope and optimism, with an open invitation to anybody who feels like they don't have a political home, that the politics that are happening in Parliament with the Liberal and Conservative governments, if they're not improving your material conditions as a worker in working class Canada, that you can engage in this process. And we know we're going to have some really exciting leaders in the leadership race, and that is very important, but the rebuild of the party cannot rest on the shoulders of one person alone, which is why we've been working with, over the last several months, a coalition of grassroots groups. There is a vibrancy and an excitement out there with our youth groups, our campus clubs, all of our activist folks, our union activists and leadership, and they are committed to this project. So we're calling on all Canadians to visit ndprenewal.ca and engage in this process over the next 6 months to ensure that come convention, there is a renewed excitement and hope and optimism for our party, one in which when we do select a leader, that leader can come in, support the caucus that's here, and have a pathway forward for the next elections to come. Thank you. We are ready to take on any questions you might have.
Sarah Ritchie with the Canadian Press. I'm curious, Peter, if you can tell us, or Matt, whichever one wants to answer, what is it you think this group can achieve that the party in its parallel process cannot?
I think we need to work together. We've been talking with the party over the last few weeks. We've had conversations with them. What this does is enhance, amplify. It means contacting more members and former members. What it does is it adds another tool that is absolutely vitally important for renewal of the party. I mean, what we went through in '93, as I was intimately involved with, was the rebuilding of the party, but on the basis of really hearing back from the membership. We're gratified the party has extended the deadline for submissions to the party to the end of October. That's great. Our process will be over the next 6 months, leading up to the March convention. And we welcome the initiatives. As Matthew has said, we've got activists and grassroots organizations across the country getting involved as well. That's terrific. It shows both the necessity of the NDP, but also the importance of rebuilding on a strong base. And the strong foundation comes from the membership, and that's what we add to what the existing initiatives are.
You said this is a volunteer initiative. Presumably this is going to require travel, that kind of thing. So who's funding this?
The volunteers. Like I flew myself here for this press conference. That's how we do it. It takes many hands to push the wheel up the hill, and we're joining our hands with the party and with the magnificent caucus, as Matthew has said, to move this party forward, because we're needed now more than ever.
And if I could just share one reflection, after every election, the party undertakes a post-mortem. And they are mandated to look at the preconditions leading up to the election, its outcomes, what worked, what didn't work. And I think what you've heard from Peter in explaining when we've been in this situation before, we actually go beyond that. We're not just looking to the past and the present, but we're also looking to the future. And I think that in leadership races, there's going to be really passionate and compelling visions for the future of the country, and that's going to be important. Equally as important, I feel, in this day and age particularly, where Canadians are feeling politically estranged, where they don't have their home, where no one's listening, we are an active ear of the party. So we are going to be out there listening for what people want, not necessarily going out there and telling them what they need. And those are slightly different things, and I think it's exciting. And as Peter acknowledged, many hands do make light work. We do have the ability through past members, staff, organizers, volunteers, and people who have just been tangentially connected to the party to contribute to this discussion, because it's very clear from the discussions that we've had over the last 6 months that there is something missing from the governing party and the official opposition in the way in which they're treating this economy, and most effectively how it's impacting workers and working class people.
Mark Andrew, the Toronto Star. I'm just wondering, I understand this process is just getting started and it's ongoing, but personally for the three of you as people very involved in the party, what's your understanding of what's gone wrong, and what's your personal ideas on what needs to change?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah, and I think without prejudicing our process, we believe that democracy is deliberative. And so we all have opinions, and we know what worked for us locally, what didn't work. We've seen what happened with the national outcome. And I think what we're doing right now is we're shifting the onus from individual people, or the personification of the party in terms of MPs, back to the membership. We believe the party is the membership, and we know that the best ideas are going to come from the collective values and common ground of our rank and file members. And so we can imagine there's going to be themes, but I think campaign readiness is going to be one of them, which is why I think looking at the timeline of 6 months, it is better to get people invigorated and active now versus going to them simply during an election time. And I think for myself, that's a lesson to be learned, that we need to be constantly engaging with people and making sure that come election time, those relationships are sound and we're ready to take it to the polls should the next opportunity come.
You want to say anything to it?
Yes. Your question is like what we could have done differently? Is that what your question was?
That, but also just, you've spent some time reflecting on and talking to people. Just what do you think needs to change at this point so far in this process?
I think if you were to ask me one thing is we need to listen to people better. We need to make sure everybody's voices are being heard, and everybody should have a seat at the table to contribute their ideas. That's including how a campaign is run and moving forward, how do we build a party? And we also need to invite everybody to contribute their ideas. And this is why we have the website for people to contribute their ideas.
I just wanted to add one thing, both to build on what Matthew and Doris had just said. When we did this in 1993, we were in a terrible financial state. The party had literally gone over the cliff. We'd lost official party status. One of the interesting byproducts of just going out and asking the grassroots in such a refined way, we heard back, we put out proposals, we heard back again. There was over 1,200 submissions. I mean, there were clubs meeting in basements. There were constituency associations meeting, affiliates meeting, allied organizations, having these discussions and sending in information. And the largely consensus document that was adopted in 1995 came as a result of all of those intense discussions. And it was profound as a document. The interesting byproduct was the party actually ended up being in the best financial position of any of the political parties afterwards. When you engage people in a meaningful way, people step up. And we're asking New Democrats to get involved and to ensure that we can move forward at the riding association level, at the national level, to ensure that this party is strong and vibrant in the next campaign. And what I'm certainly hearing on the doorsteps is that's what Canadians want. They want to see a revitalized NDP back in Parliament.
I understand you said this initiative is independent of any leadership campaign. I wonder if any of you individually have any thoughts about some of the potential candidates, like your former caucus colleague Heather McPherson. Abby Lewis has launched. Elections Canada says Rob Ashton's going to be in the race. Do you have any thoughts you want to share?
We welcome them all.
Are you ruling out making any personal endorsements if you're being involved in this initiative, or is that a separate thing in your view?
I'll say for myself that I'm absolutely ruling that out. I don't believe that the renewal of the party will rest on any one person's shoulders. I truly believe that we are at our best as a grassroots party that is membership driven, membership focused, that takes that collective approach. And I think we're going to need strong leadership. And I'm excited about the quality of candidates who are coming out. There could be more. But at this particular time, particularly given the work that we've done, we feel that it is as equally important to engage the membership than it is to necessarily get, at least I do, to get involved in an individual leadership race. And so that is the impetus of this. I made it very clear I have no intentions to run, but I believe in this project. And so if I believe in this project as being Canada's only Labour Party, that we have a responsibility to go out there and organize while the leaders are doing their thing. Hopefully what happens is that it's such an exciting leadership race that there's a membership revitalization and spark and renewal, and we're going to be right there alongside leading people to find candidates who share their values and find candidates who reflect what they believe as the compelling future for the party and the country.
Pulowski, Canada's National Observer. I'm wondering, you said this is supplementary to what the party has already committed to, or complementary to what they're doing. So I guess I'm wondering, I mean, this initiative was started to push for more grassroots revival. How has that been received by the Central Party? If it's complementary, how are you interacting with the work that they're doing? What kind of overlap will there be?
Well, I'll say quickly that I had an opportunity to meet with Emily Tam, and I have tremendous respect for her. She's a very learned lawyer and is going to bring, I think, a very objective view on what happened in the months leading up to the election and the weeks after. And I think what we believe is required as a movement is to go beyond that. And so, again, one person, I don't think, has the ability to fully capture the national attention. And that's why, not just working as a group here, but being a coalition of grassroots groups that are efforts that are happening from former candidates, from youth factions, to make sure that that process is actually put forward into the convention, which is the supreme body of our party. So I don't believe, at least that I understand, Emily has a mandate to engage in the possible outcomes of convention. I believe that she has to be impartial to that, whereas I think we can actually wrestle with those ideas that might be left out from leadership candidates' platforms, but put forward by the membership, and make sure that the membership's voices aren't necessarily lost in the leadership race, given this inflection point that we're at and how important it is to have people excited and engaged moving forward.
And, sorry.
Just following up, I have enormous respect for Emily Timmins as well, and she's actually coming to New Westminster next Monday, so we're having our meeting. We'll have lots to say about the election campaign, so that will be an important evening. And we are keeping in touch with her and providing her with information, the kinds of proposals. As I mentioned earlier, we just launched the portal this morning. We've sent out emails just a few minutes ago to all the riding associations in the country. We're already getting feedback. And so all of that information, those proposals, all of those things, we will make sure that Emily is in that loop. That's important work that she's doing. But our time frame is longer. Our time frame is working through to the convention. And that's certainly in 1995. What made a huge difference was having a couple of iterations of drafts, of draft policy, of constitutional changes, of structural changes, ultimately coming to pretty much a consensus adoption at the October 1995 convention.
Matthew, you mentioned that you don't want membership needs and wants to get lost in the leadership race. When I last spoke to you, Mr. Julian, we were talking about the 1993 renewal process and all that, and at the time you sort of suggested that ideally, you know, that would happen before a leadership race is launched. How do you feel about how this played out, given that, you know, these things are happening in tandem instead of with more runway for the members to organize?
Well, that was my wish then, but actually in 1995 we did both at the same time. So we sent out the draft reports in March. That is when leadership campaigns announced. The process went through the summer, the feedback, the 1,200 submissions that I was talking about, and then the October we both elected a new leader, Alexa McDonough, and we adopted the comprehensive renewal reports, the draft, the platform, the bold platform proposals, the constitutional change, etc. So I'm fine with it being at the same time, but the reason why we're stepping up, in answer to the previous question, is because the next 6 months are going to be critical for the party, both in terms of leadership debate, but also in terms of rebuilding from the grassroots, and both have to happen if we're going to be the vibrant entity that I think Canadians want us to be.
Have 2 years to get this process done.
No.
Yeah,
As a former member who's, you know, experienced 3 elections in 6 years, I think minority settings are quite rightly appropriate for us to start now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was going to be my question. Is you talked about sort of a longer time frame, and I mean, we're in a minority government. It's, I think, a lot more fragile than it was in the previous one. So end of March may not even be guaranteed. We have a budget vote November 4th. I mean, on one side, are you worried that you're sending maybe a message to the Liberals that the NDP is not prepared to go to an election anytime soon? And on the other hand, depending on what's in the budget, given this process, would you be comfortable with your former colleagues or current colleagues voting down the budget, depending on what's in there?
Well, let's just say being here as early as we are into this session, I think signals that we are absolutely prepared to engage at the grassroots, at the EDAs, the people who are knocking doors, making phone calls. This process is as important as the outcome, and the process is going to be engaging our volunteer base and exciting them and giving them, you know, something to look forward to in these weeks and months to come. But make no mistakes, as New Democrats, we are prepared for whatever outcomes happen here in the House of Commons. I myself am committed to run again, and I'm going to use this process to re-engage and to signal to our community in Hamilton Centre that we are going to be election ready, like effective immediately. And the longer we have, certainly the more prepared we get, but it's also the case for the other parties, you know, who are undergoing their own tumultuous times, at least on the Conservative side, that there's you know, going to be an opportunity for us to get set before anything happens. And certainly waiting for an election to be called prior to getting prepared, I think would be a mistake. And I think that's, at least for myself, a very exciting component of what we're offering here, is that in this process of engagement, we're also becoming election ready.
Did you want to? Okay. So I mentioned earlier, we've been knocking on doors all summer. We've been fundraising. I mean, I think it was devastating, but we picked ourselves up, we dusted ourselves off, we went right back to work. And that's what New Democrats do. And so when an election comes, well, we'll be ready. I think it's fair to say we have an interim leader who's done an amazing job. Don Davies, tremendous respect for, and a phenomenal caucus. But the Liberals are also aware that we're electing a new leader in March. I think if Mr. Carney thought he could call an immediate election, I'm not sure that would go over well with Canadians, particularly the ones that I've been speaking with, who are really concerned that he committed to being progressive in the campaign and immediately seemed to be following Stephen Harper's playbook afterwards with the drive to the right. He's become a very conservative prime minister. I think the Liberals understand that it would be a risky move for them. We're going to do the work that we have to do, and we're going to be ready whenever the election comes.
Last question?
Eleanor Wanda, Hill Times, good morning. You've talked a lot about sort of connecting with the grassroots. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is a group called Reclaim Canada's NDP, which has for some time been saying that the party has really lost touch with its grassroots base and has been encouraging donors to sort of divert their donations to the riding association level rather than the central party to sort of send a message to upper management. I'm curious if you think the party has lost touch with its grassroots membership.
I think the election results are the proven point that we have lost touch and we have to rebuild. Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, the renewal process is something that actually brought more people to contribute to the party at the national level and the riding level. We are in touch with other groups like Reclaim, and like their energy as well. It is obvious that there is a need for grassroots involvement and rebuilding, and that is the work that we are going to continue to do, working with other organizations of grassroots members across the country. These are all groups that believe in the NDP. We all have to work together to get the NDP to a place where in the next election we can play the role that Canadians want us to play. And despite the fact that we have a magnificent 7 MPs, I can tell you, without the procedural tools that a party has when it's a recognized party, it makes it very difficult for them to do their job. They're doing an extraordinary job, but having recognized party status means a whole range of other tools that we've used in the past to force the government to put in place things like dental care and anti-scab legislation. Matthew was so intensely involved in, and the pharmacare bill, and a whole range of other things, affordable housing funding. These are all things we achieved because we had the status of an official party and had the procedural tools in order to ensure that those things happened. And we need to get back to that. I think that's what Canadians want, and that's what we'll be spending our time over the next 6 months working with the membership to re-galvanize the party. So coming out of the leadership, coming out of next March, we are a force to be reckoned with across the country. That is our intent.
Thank you. That's all the time we had. This concludes the press conference. C'est tout le temps que nous avions. Ceci conclut la conférence de presse.
And thank you so much for coming out. You play an extraordinary role. I admire our professional journalists in this country, so thank you for your work.
Thank you.